Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. I am Dean, and once again, I have Devin with me.
Hey everybody! Hopefully everyone had a great New Year's holiday and enjoying either the cold or warm weather, depending where you're at.
I want to say a lot of cold weather because even down here in Central Florida, I'm like bundled up, and it's not what we're used to. I will say that.
Oh no, but there, I saw someone in Australia be like, "Yeah, it's 96 degrees today," because it's their summer.
We should be saying that even this time of the year, and it's
Yeah,
what 48 right now.
yeah, and it's only going to get into the low 40s overnight tonight.
Yeah, it. We got hit with that cold snap too, so hopefully everyone's being safe out there. I know there's a lot going on, weather wise in the country, but we are not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about something more fun. We're here to talk about Pokemon, and this week we're going to talk about the next two sets coming out. So there's one mini set, Prismatic Evolutions, which by now I'm sure you've heard about and all the hype around it. And then we're going to go and talk about the new set, Journey Together, that's going to come out in late March. That will be the set that I believe will bring on rotation. However, that's not been confirmed. This is just speculation. So we'll talk about those two sets and our thoughts about the cards coming out with the associated with those sets and how that will affect us here in the western part of the Pokemon region. And then we'll go into our rogue deck of the week and maybe have a little post discussion or pre discussion for some tournaments that Dev and I are going to be a part of this weekend. So without further ado, let's talk about some new cards.
Yeah, so let's start with Prismatic Evolution, seeing that that's the set of cards we're going to get first out of the two sets we're kind of talking about today.
Yeah, this will be coming out next week. At the time of recording, the set is coming out on the, I believe, 15th. Um, so we'll get this very soon. We're using Justin Basil as our resource. So anyone interested in what the all the cards do, this website has great translations. So go ahead, check it out. I will say this is going to be a big reprint set. So, which may be good for some of the cards that we're currently using now. One card that's getting reprinted is Teal Mask Ogerpon EX. I saw Iron Hands EX. Excuse me, a part of this set. So, hopefully, with the introduction of this mini set, those card prices will drop.
Yeah, everyone gives reprint sets a bad rap, but the one thing reprint sets really do is that they always give popular cards or hard to get a hold of cards another way to get a hold of and make it more affordable for players on a budget.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I haven't touched any of the Teal Mask Ogerpon decks is just I just didn't feel like spending that money. It was at one point $25 for a single Teal Mask Ogerpon card, and that's for the base rare. If you're going for the fancier ones, man, they're way more expensive. And then I also sold a couple Iron Hands EX because I needed some cash, and I got a pretty penny for them, and I just never went and used that card in any deck. So I took advantage of the high value of these cards at the moment, but also as a competitive player, sometimes it'll be nice for me to try Raging Bolt or Regidrago or even just any deck that utilizes that draw engine. This will be a great way for me to finally touch those cards for once.
Yeah, so we'll go through the set in a certain order here. We'll kind of go highlight some of the important cards we see and kind of talk about any potential impact that these cards will have on the meta or even just cards that catch our eye of, oh, this could be paired with X or Y kind of deal. Because we kind of did that before when we were getting set up. Like, you and I started talking. It's like, well, let's put this onto the podcast.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, the first card I'm just going through and going in the order that the Justin Basil's website has first card I see, as everyone's talking about, is the Bidoof card from Terrestrial Festival,
Oh
and
yeah.
it deserves a conversation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It has free retreat. It's a baby Pokemon, so those who are not familiar, they tend to have low HP, free retreat, a free attack cost, and the attack costs. This is what everyone's talking about. It's called Itchy Pollen. We believe that's the English translation. We'll wait next week once we actually get the card. It does 10 damage. Okay, it does 10 damage, but during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards from their hand.
And that's going to be super important as a lead. Like, we're seeing lists in Japan where people are putting 1 or 2 of this card in their deck. All that is for turn 1 or turn 2 to slow their opponent down from setting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You see popular decks like Charizard, Dragapult, any setup deck, they really need to use Rare Candy in the next turn to really get going. And by utilizing the Bidoof, you're slowing them down greatly. You're making them manually evolve up, which for a deck like Charizard, that can be very impactful because it slows down. You want to attack as soon as possible. So this eliminates that. Also, like if you're gonna target it, yes, it's 30 HP, but you're only getting one prize for it. So it really messes up your opponent's game plan for sure.
Yeah, your opponent's not going to boss this up. If it's in the lead and you get one attack off, it does its job. If it stays in the lead after turn 1 and doesn't get KO'd, then it's free retreat, so you can pivot. It's such a versatile card that it feels bad mid to late game, but it's fantastic early.
It's like the Cleffa that we use now from Obsidian Flames, where same thing. It's a 30 HP Pokemon, free retreat, free attack, and it helps you draw cards. Same thing. Like it's great in the beginning to help you set up, but mid to late game you don't want to have that out. It's a liability. It's an easy KO. It doesn't really do much for your setup at that point in the game. So I would say we're gonna view this just like the Cleffa. So it's going to be a very important card in a lot of decks, but only in the first couple turns.
Oh yeah. Then other cards, obviously, we already talked about the reprint of Teal Mask Ogerpon. That's going to be important, mostly from a cost perspective. Hopefully, the price of that card becomes more manageable for more players.
And before we go on, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Prismatic Evolutions is going to be known as the Eevee set, kind of like Evolving Skies. However, I enjoy my Eevee cards just like everyone else, but on a competitive viewpoint, these we're not going to be talking about a lot about these cards. They're not that good. They're not seeing any success in Japan. Granted, one of the good players over here may see these cards and find a way to make it good, and if they can, we'll talk about it then. But overall, we're going to talk more about the more impactful cards that we think are just going to kind of start right off the gate. These are going to be very collector cards for sure, but competitive wise, playability wise, I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, no, that's 100% accurate, and that's why, like, I was scrolling through. I already passed through like the Leafeon and the Flareon. I'm like, I want these cards to be good. They're just not right now. We just don't know or have a meta that we know of that's going to be effective for those cards. Just keep on going. Like again, there's a lot of reprints, so it's really not much really of value in this set. Like we talked about, Iron Hands EX is getting reprinted. And the Duskull, the Dusclops, and Dusknoir is being reprinted. I think that's important to know. That another way of getting hold of those cards. Yes, Shroud of Fable isn't too old of a set, but it's just having another set to get these cards for a lot of other players is actually, I think, is important.
Yeah, because that was a mini set in itself as well. And I know when it first came out, it was harder to get those cards. So having another really just print set of it, it'll be good.
Yeah, more print runs the better, I think. Okie Doki's getting reprint. We have a video on that we did about a month and a half ago now. So another way to get a hold of some of those cards. Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon is getting reprinted. I think that's an important card.
That's hasn't been seeing a lot of play yet, or not yet. Sorry, lately. But yeah, this is a card that if you're playing a more control, more wall style deck, this will be a great way to kind of stock up on those cards. I know I pulled one. I have it in my expanded deck with Duraludon VMAX, just trying to wall and be as annoying as possible. Granted, that's an expanded meta, which I'll participate in next week. But yeah, some of these reprints, I would say, take advantage of cracking these cards and trying to get some of these good competitive staples if you can.
Yeah, like Dragon Ball EX lines being reprinted as well. I think that's important. I think the Eevee from Surging Sparks reprint is not important now, but get a 4 of right now. Get a 4 of now.
Yeah, it's going to help out with the evolution EXs once they actually become good. We are getting an EVEX, which is another way to evolve your EV or Evolution EX Stage 1 card. So there's always that too. And the good thing is, because EV and EVEX are two different Pokemon, you can play a 4 of each in your deck.
Yeah. Or play a 3-2 or some form of combination.
The fact that, yeah, just you can play more than the 4 is the important aspect with that mechanic.
Yeah, it's like always it was the great part of having a Ditto Prism Star back in the days where you had a fifth basics of your evolutionary line you needed, and it just was always super versatile.
Yeah.
The Knockdown from Star Crown's getting reprinted, so that's going to be important. And I say that because I think Knockdown is going to see a lot more action post rotation than it already is now.
Oh yeah, because Terra is going to become more prevalent. This is just a no-brainer to if you can put this in any Terra card or Terra deck. So we'll probably with losing some draw with post rotation, this helps you get cards that you need. So I can see that becoming like a 1/1 or a 2/2 in a lot of decks.
The next card I would point out is the Regigigas.
Yes.
It's seeing a lot of play in Japan.
So what the Regigigas does, for those who don't know, it's a colorless colorless basic Pokemon, 160 HP, and it has an attack called Jewel Break for 4 colorless energy. It does 100 damage, but if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Terra Pokemon, it does 230 more damage.
So 330 is not a number they just picked out of the sky. It's a very important number when it comes to Terra.
Oh, they hate Pokemon. To me, that's saying they hate Charizard.
Oh yeah, and but the problem is this is a 4 colorless energy attack. So you need to find a way to either slowly build it up over time, which your opponent will never allow you to do, or a way to accelerate energy onto it or find shortcuts.
So the two decks I see this playing a lot will be Lugia, even though it's going to be for just a short time because that rotates. But there's been talks about you take out the Cincino line and just playing 1 or 2 of these. It essentially does the same thing as what the Cincinos was doing, and probably a little better because you can just play it down, switch into it, attach using the Archeops, and boom, you can take out Charizard, Dragapult, name whatever Terra Pokemon EX you're going against. It'll be your single prize way of handling that. And then another deck I think about is just the Regi deck itself with the Terra Pikachu. You can play this with the other Regigigas and use the Regigigas' ability to power up this Regigigas and then just attack big that way too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm interested to see because obviously it's going to exist in that meta for a little bit, but then what's going to be the future of it post rotation kind of deal.
Yeah, because both those decks rotate because they're both from the F block. So it'll be nice to see this in the next 2 or 3 months. But where is it going to find its home once rotation hits, or will it find its home? So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see.
Yep, absolutely. Other cards being put in the set. Terapagos EX is getting reprinted. That's going to make that card a little easier to get a hold of. Um, I like this Black Belt's practice card.
Oh yes, I saw this online, and I was so hyped for it.
And I
So
love the fact that every single region has a different art.
yeah, and that's one thing that this set is introducing. There's a couple cards. So there's the Black Belts Practice is one, and then Professor's Research is another. Each generation will have its representatives. So with the Professor's Research, it'll be all the professors. But with this one, it's all the Black Belt, the karate people, and it's really cool. And each one's different. But for those who don't know, it's a supporter card. It says during this turn, attacks used by your Pokemon do 40 more damage to your opponent's active EX. So that's going to fix a lot of math.
Yeah, absolutely. 40 damage is not something to scoff at.
So we'll see how that's being played. I can see this playing in like maybe like Ceruledge. I can see this playing in Cloth. I can really any deck that kind of struggles with hitting the numbers it needs to. This is a good option for you. It can help you close late game. You don't need to get like max belt or any other modifiers. This could be your modifier for you. But with that
Mm-hmm.
being said, it's your supporter for turn.
Yeah, but I think sometimes damage modifier supporter is something you need because you don't always need a draw supporter.
Yeah, that's true. You kind of see that late game as well. So going on, we kind of see the same old stuff. A lot of reprints.
I think then the two A specs, or at least not to two, but Max Rod and Maximum Belt are going to be interesting. Again,
Well,
another
we have Max
damage.
Belt. That's a reprint, but Max Rod
Yeah,
is
yeah.
new. So that is. I don't know what to think about this A spec. So what it reads is put up to 5 in any combination of Pokemon and Basic Energy from your discard into your hand.
Well,
So
Super Rod is super good, but Super Rod puts it in your deck. So the fact that you can put Pokemon and energy into your hand. Now, granted, it's basic energy, but that's fine. And then Pokemon, it's any Pokemon, so you can put a missing piece of an evolutionary line back in your hand. You can put cards to refill your bench back in your hand. Like, I think this card is going to have sneaky value in the right deck because it's going to help you restabilize mid late game.
yeah, actually one deck I think this will be really nice in. Um, so there's this Seeking deck that's out there right now. Not Seeking, I'm sorry. Wrong water Pokemon. Dugong. There's this Dugong deck out right now, and sometimes you lose energy, and it's a great way to get that energy and have it back, detach it to your Dugong. If you can't recycle it well, so maybe that is an option for like a nice cheeky single prize deck. But yeah, we'll see what the top players do with this ace spec if they do it. Going down the other cards, we see the researches. I think the last card we can briefly touch on is another new ace spec called Treasure Tracker. It says search your deck for up to 5 Pokemon tool cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand and shuffle your deck. So if you're playing a very heavy tool deck, this is perfect for you.
What this card tells me is that there's going to be a card in the next set or two that's going to want different types of tool cards.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a tool drop deck, like the Patrisu, or I know that's been a style of deck, not necessarily
Yeah,
always good, but they always make a Pokemon with that attack.
yeah, tool drop, or even like a way to get your tools out of your deck so you can discard them and put them in your discard pile for like the Rotoms that is used in GLC and expanded, different things like that.
Oh yeah, this will be good with Rotom V Star actually. So I know a lot of people don't play that card a lot. They'll just play the V version, but the V Star does damage for every, I believe, tool in the discard. So get this
Mm-hmm.
in your hand, find a way to discard them, and then you move it from the discard to the lost zone, and you do like a lot of damage that way. So this
Yeah,
could be a
no.
nice ace spec for that deck for anyone who wants to try it.
Alrighty. So that's the basics of Prismatic Evolution. We definitely did not talk about every single card. It's a lot of reprints, like we've mentioned before. It's going to be a fun little mini set for the post Christmas period. I think this is, to me, the biggest highlight. Like, I will reinforce my point. Reprint sets, especially as part of a non-main release, is always great for budget players.
Yeah, it will bring down card prices for the really popular cards that are high demand. We're bringing more supply in, so it will bring down the cost, even if it's just a little bit. We do want to say before we start talking about Journey Together, this the Prismatic Evolution does come out next week. So anyone going to Birmingham Regional and San Antonio, do not do not get the Bidoo and put in your deck. You'll have an illegal deck, and you may not have a good time at those regionals. These cards are not going to be legal. You have to wait the 2 week period. So just be mindful of that. They're great cards. Have them ready to playtest post San Antonio, and you'll be good to go.
So that'll be ready illegal February 1st.
Yes.
So for those who think more on a counter like I do.
Which I have a tournament that weekend I'm planning on going, so I'm trying to see if I can get my hands on some of those cards.
Alrighty, so let's transition over to Journey Together. This is the set I think I was more excited to talk about because it brings a lot of throwback vibes with some of the cards that we're seeing in it.
Yeah, not so it does that in multiple ways. So one of which is we'll talk about some cards that are introduced that will remind us of certain decks from the past. If you want to reference the first episode Devin was on with us about history of different Pokemon archetypes, you can go ahead and listen to that. But another way it also kind of gives us a little retro throwback vibe is that it reintroduces old characters, and that's tied in with those cards that we and those decks that we talked about that bring back old mechanics. So we'll go through that, and kind of like we did with Prismatic Evolution, we're just gonna go down the website and we'll just talk about anything that kind of pops our eye.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm just kind of scrolling through here.
There's actually a fire card I want to talk about. Is there any grass Pokemon you see you want to talk about? I'm not really seeing anything in the grass realm.
I'm not really seeing anything in grass either. So,
So the first card I want to mention, um, and it goes with another card that's being introduced in this set, Blaziken EX.
yeah,
So
I was just looking at that. That's a super interesting ability.
the reason why I bring this up is that they're going to be introducing Mamoswine EX with this um with this set as well. And we'll talk about it when we get down to the fighting type Pokemon, but Mamoswine has an ability where um you can grab any Pokemon you want, and then it has an attack based on how many stage 2 Pokemon you have in play. So to me this will be a very good addition to the Mamoswine because it has an ability, Overflowing Spirit, Once during your turn, you may attach a basic energy card from your discard to one of your Pokemon. Easy energy acceleration. It's a stage 2. I think this will be a great contender to put in that deck.
Yeah, fighting and fire have always had a lot of synergies just across the board. So I think in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of it's going to be someone's pet deck, and it's just going to take some time to kind of just fine tune the balance, because running a whole bunch of stage 2s don't always work, even though Charizard and Pidgeot makes it look simple.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, because I kind of want to make this Mamoswine deck work. The first iteration I was coming up with an idea was with Tatsukiri EX, but then you're using an EX to set it up, and you may not even get those cards to put on your bench. It makes everything complicated. So I'm excited to see how we make this archetype work, and I think Blaziken is a good contender. Not sure if it's going to make the final cut, but that ability is still pretty good, and I think it's at least worth mentioning.
Oh, absolutely. The next cards that I want to mention are the first trainer cards that we're going to be seeing, because we're bringing trainer Pokemon cards are coming back for the first time in, like, I want to say 15 years or maybe even longer. So this is a mechanic that was introduced all the way back in like the first 3 sets of Rocket Pokemon and Gym Leader Pokemon, different things like that. So the first cards we're looking at are Ends Darumaka and Ends Darmanitan. The cards for Ends Darmanitan, I think, would be the interesting one, because it has a double colorless attack that's backdraft 30 times, and this is 30 times the amount of energy cards in your opponent's discard pile. So there are archetypes, as we'll see later in the episode, that love putting energy into discard pile. But there's also a lot of different decks that just have a lot of energy, so a lot of energy just end up being in the discard pile.
Yeah, and also I think we should also mention the second attack. So as we talked about in a previous episode, with post rotation, we're losing Radiant Pokemon, and one of which is Radiant Greninja. So if you want your Radiant Greninja fix, play Ends Darmanitan. The second attack does for 2 fire and a colorless. Sounds familiar? It is called Darmanican. We'll see if that's a proper translation, but 90 damage. Discard all energy to from this Pokemon. It does 90 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So, kind of like Moonlight Shuriken at home. The only difference is that you are discarding all the energy versus just 2. But Moonlight Shuriken's back. It's like we never lost it.
And it's in an archetype, like, we'll look at the trainer Pokemon will get a lot of support in the next set or two. This mechanic was introduced during the closing ceremonies of Worlds.
Yeah.
So this isn't going to be something that's only going to be seen in 1 or 2 sets. We're going to be seeing this in the entire block.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, going on, not seeing anything else in fire. Water's not really much there as of now. We'll probably have to revisit this later on. But there's another trainer battle partner Pokemon and archetype to talk about in the electric Pokemon. So
I would say Iono is going to be the trainer, so it makes sense. It's a fan favorite.
Yeah, and it's honestly the cards that they're introduced. You can make a deck just around those. Like, we don't need any other Iono Pokemon. So the Pokemon introduced were Voltorb, Electrode, Tadpole, Bellibolt, Wattrel, and Kilowattrel.
And I think it's very interesting because each one of them have a uniqueness to themselves that can make them viable within an Iono archetype of itself. So the Voltorb has an attack, double colorless, 20 plus attack is 20 more damage for each lightning energy attached to your Iono's Pokemon. So you can just flood your board with electric energy, and this Voltorb will do a whole bunch of damage.
as a single prizer too, and it's 70 HP, which means you can get it out using Buddy Buddy Poffin.
Yeah. And then the Electrode has a very electro attack. Double Lightning, Heart Pounding Bomb. This attack does 100 damage to itself. It only has 100 HP. So unless you're increasing its HP another way, it's going to knock itself out. Flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon's knocked out.
That's very high rolly.
It is, and it is very much an Electrode card. Electrode has a reputation of knocking itself out and big things happening with it.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I think the basic Pokemon is better than the Stage 1 in this instance.
Oh, absolutely it is.
But I can see a one-of. Playing like a one-of in this just to try to close out the game. Hopefully you roll aheads and then like you get your last 2 prizes or something. I can see that, but we're going to see the Voltorb more.
Mm-hmm.
So
For sure.
So next will be the Tabolt and Bellibolt. Tabolt's just a basic 60 HP Pokemon. The Bellibolt, it's where it's at. So it has an ability. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic lightning energy card from your hand to one of your Iono's Pokemon. So this is where you get the energy flood.
And really, there's Energy Flood has proven to be a very effective archetype in the game. Baxcalibur is a thing. Rain Dance effects have always been in the game, so this is just Electric's turn to have it. We're not even Electric, it's Iono's turn to have it. So it's very specific in that.
Oh, one thing I just noticed with the Voltorb's attack, it doesn't have to be on the Voltorb.
No.
And you're not
it just has to be on Iono. Yeah, it just has to be on Iono's Pokemon.
Yeah. So if you spread out the energy, you're keeping you have a good possibility of keeping most of your energy in play. So when you set up the other Voltorb, you only really need to set up 2 energy to it.
Yeah, it's Voltorb's attack encourages you to set up a healthy board state.
It reminds me of Bolton V and VMAX when that was a thing. And also I believe Pikarom had a similar attack as well. So it's giving me those vibes.
So did Xerneas Break. Xerneas Break did calculations based on how many energy was on your board. And Xerneas Base was a Pokemon that did Geomancy, which accelerated energy onto your board as well.
Yeah. So we got the attacker. We got the Pokemon that's setting up the energy. Well, how are we getting the energy into our hand?
So that's where Wattrel and Kilowattrel come into play a little bit. So the Wattrel is just a basic 60 HP Pokemon, but the Kilowattrel is a stage 1, 120 HP with the ability Flash Draw. So you have to discard a lightning energy from the Pokemon in order to use the ability, but if you're able to put the energy onto it from the Bellibolt, that's not an issue. And then once per turn, you may draw until you have 6 cards in hand. So if you have multiple Kilowattrels out, you can just keep on refilling your hand and getting out those resources.
Yeah, and the last card that we'll talk about with this combination for this archetype, it's going to be a Stadium, Levincia, and basically saying, let me find it real quick.
You can do 2 basic lightning Pokemon, or lightning energy and put them in your hand. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, once each player's turn, that player may put 2 basic lightning from their discard pile to your hand. So yeah, so you can discard the Pokemon with the Kilowattrel, and then recycle it with the Stadium. And you're not always losing the energy you need to make those big attacks. And to get energy into your hand, there's so many options nowadays. You have Letter Encouragement, you have Earthen Vessel. There's just so many ways. And also, Electric Generator. You can just use that card.
Yeah, another way to accelerate energy with the Electric. So I think Electric might see a small resurgence in the metagame based around the Iono support.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is, for most of it, It's just a set. You don't have to try to invest in other sets.
Yeah, so if you want to start fresh, if you're kind of thinking about wanting to learn how to play a game, you don't know where to start, if you want to wait the next couple months, just maybe buy a League Battle deck, learn the mechanics and how to play, and wait till this set comes out, and just build this archetype. Honestly, this is a very good competitive deck. I feel like if you build this deck, you will have success in local tournaments, if not at regional level as well.
I think it has the possibility of being very, very good. It will take optimization, and we're going to see that over time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're getting out of the... Oh, go ahead.
I want to say, so the next Pokemon I want to look at is the first trainer Pokemon we saw during Worlds. Lily's Clefairy.
Yes.
When that card showed up on screen, I heard that crowd pop. And we didn't even know what the card did at the time.
It just... Lily is a favorable character from Sun and Moon. Clefairy's always been a fan favorite Pokemon, so having them together, of course people are going to lose their mind. And it has an ability called Fairy Zone. The weakness of each of your opponent's dragon Pokemon is now Psychic. Well, that's important because dragon Pokemon don't have weakness, and now we're giving them a weakness.
Yeah, it's a little bit too too little too late for some things, because this set will not exist with Regidrago being in the format.
Yeah, that's the only unfortunate thing. I would say other than that, this would have been a great announcement card. But with that card rotating, I'm not really thinking of any strong dragon decks that are going to be coming out.
There's Dragon Ball EX still, but it's also going to counteract some of the N Pokemon for sure, because N is known as a dragon trainer as well.
Yeah, and he does have a couple cards that we'll get to. So we'll see where Lily's Clefairy EX falls. I don't think we have any other Lily's Pokemon. So that's
not yet.
So that's still going to be announced. There is a item card, which we'll talk about once we get to the item cards. But going down with the other psychic type Pokemon.
Bayonet's going to be interesting. That has a very control-y attack.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
So it's single psychic. The card itself is a stage 1 psychic Pokemon, 90 HP. But its attack, Curse, Speech for single psychic energy. Your opponent shuffles 3 cards from their hand into their deck. You are just going to get rid of your opponent's hand. Like this. That's the whole point of that deck. It's going to be part of a control archetype for sure.
Oh yeah, you pair it with Xerxic Machinations, limit your opponent's hand down to 3, use this attack. Now they don't have any hand to work with. They're top decking the whole entire game. And this also pairs well with Art and Fair Stamp. Whatever control card you want, this is going to be an inclusion in there, and it only takes 1 psychic energy to do what it's doing.
Mm-hmm. I think the Metagross is interesting.
It's interesting.
It's a stage 2 psychic Pokemon with an attack that's 2 psychic, does 130, and if Beldum and Metang are on your bench, so one of each have to be on your bench, it does 150 more, so 2 energy for 280 is not a bad for a deck that definitely you want to be staggering your evolutions anyway.
Yeah, I can see this being paired with a metal deck, oddly enough. So instead of playing Psychic Energy, maybe play 1 or 2 Reversal Energy, attach it to the Metagross, and then you're attacking. That way you don't have to worry about having both Metal and Psychic Energy, because the Metal Metang with the Metal Maker ability is so powerful in those decks. Add one of this Metagross just for a cleanup card. I think that will be a good inclusion, but that's just me kind of thinking out loud.
Mm-hmm. Another psychic Pokemon is N-Sigalith, with a very interesting ability, or a very interesting attack, sorry.
Attack, yeah.
So, Victory Symbol, Psychic Double Colorist, so it's not hard to really power that up, let's be honest. If you use this attack when you have 1 prize remaining, you win the game.
You only need to power it up once.
Exactly.
So pair it with the Xatu. That way you can do 2 energy, or really more than 2. So you can have multiple Zatus in play, use the ability from Xatu to attach the psychic energy onto the Sigilyph, find a way to retreat it. You're good. You're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Um,
but
Another Lily's Pokemon we forgot to see is Lily's Comfey,
oh, I didn't even see
where
that.
it says for a single colorless attack, Flower Call, search your deck for any number of basic Lily Pokemon and put them on your bench. So you can just get a whole bunch of Clefairy set up.
Yeah. So we'll see how that archetype shapes out. I think those are the only Pokemon right now for Lily. We're going down. Here we are in the fighting Pokemon, the Mamoswine EX.
Yeah, we already kind of talked about it a little bit.
But yeah, I'm excited. Has an attack for 2 fighting energy, Rumbling March, 180 plus. It does 40 more damage for each stage 2 Pokemon on your bench. So 180 plus, if you get a full bench full of Pokemon, you're doing another 200 damage more, so 380. It's asking for a lot, but I think this will be fun. So we'll see how that goes.
I think Mamoswine Pidgeot would not be a bad combination.
Oh yeah,
And trying to find a way to get your energy a little quicker maybe might be the missing piece.
so it will either be the Blaziken EX, or a lot of people are talking about adding the Garganacl. Garganacl has an ability where you can accelerate energy and heal at the same time, and that's another stage 2 fighting Pokemon as well.
So it'll be interesting to see how all that kind of goes.
And then the next Pokemon is something that you actually pointed out to me before we started recording, which is the Lycanroc.
Yeah, so this Lycanroc is a stage 1 fighting Pokemon, 120 HP, and it has a very interesting ability, Entangling Spikes. When you play this card, from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may attach 2 Spike Energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon, and then it has an attack that's only 3 colors to attack, and it's 40 plus, and it does 40 more damage for every damage counter on your opponent's active. So you could set this up out of nowhere with its ability. And Spike Energy, I'm going to skip to it just because it is relevant to this card. So Spike Energy is a special energy. It provides a colorless energy, but if the Pokemon that card is attached to receives any damage, you put 2 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So with the Lycanroc has saying, oh, put 2 Spike Energy onto this Lycanroc. If this Lycanroc takes any damage from attacks, you're putting 4 damage counters onto your opponent's Pokemon. So it may not benefit that Lycanroc, but it could benefit your next Lycanroc.
Yeah, and I honestly, I'm like, oh, it's not really worth it. This isn't a good card. But the more you talked about it, you slowly convinced me. I'm like, oh, maybe this will be a nice, cheap, single prize archetype. Um, we'll see if it can hold its own on the higher tournament scale. But I think for like a local tournament, this will be a fun deck to take.
Yeah, I just don't know its partner just yet, but looking at it, and it's like, this is a card you can build a deck around very easily.
Oh yeah.
And it's just trying to find the right partner.
So let's see. We're gonna go down.
Toadschool has reduces all your Pokemon's retreat by 2 colors. That's massive.
Yeah, but it has to stay on the bench though. So as soon as this gets gusted into the active, that ability isn't procted. It's kind of like the Gastrodon where everyone was so hyped up. It's like, oh, this is gonna be the Charizard killer, and it hasn't done anything because it has to get set up, has to stay on the bench. There's too many things around it that's not necessarily going to be beneficial.
No, 100% agree. I would say the next Pokemon is the second loudest pop we got during Worlds when it came to the TCG announcement, which is Zoroark EX.
Yes.
And I don't think its attack is very good, but it's because its attack is only as good as the ends cards in its meta, but its ability is busted. And that's not a hot take by any means. If anyone sees this ability, they say, yeah, it's a busted ability. Like, that's a non-negotiable ability. When you see that, it's getting played.
Oh yeah, for those who don't know or remember, this is part of the throwback we mentioned early on in the episode. So it has an ability trade, which if you played Zoroark GX, same ability and it reads the same. You must discard a card from your hand and use the ability. Once during your turn, you may draw 2 cards.
So good. Like, you're gonna have 3 to 4 Zoroark EX in play. You're gonna trade 3 to 4 times. You're gonna go through your deck super quickly. Double Darkness Energy is not a hard attack cost to cover. And Night Joker, choose one of your bench end Pokemon attacks and use that attack. So you could use any other bench Pokemon and kind of just use its attack. Again, the attack's only as good as the ends cards that it's paired with. But we're going to look into at least the first round of ends cards and kind of see if that attack can be just taken advantage of.
Yeah, because we already talked about the Darmanitan, and that was pretty good with those 2 attacks. So we'll go and find some others. But another trainer.
I forgot about the end Darmaka and Darmanitan attack. That would be okay.
So I'm re-looking at it now. I have to remind myself.
It's a double colorless attack, so you won't have to use a second attack, which is fine. Pairing those 2 up without even looking at the other cards, that could be a very interesting mechanic.
Yeah, because you can do the second attack. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities with this. But another trainer card or trainer that was introduced was Marnie. So now she has a list of Pokemon. This goes back to what we mentioned, kind of like Lily. We don't have a lot of info about the Marnie Pokemon, but one Pokemon we do know is the Grimmsnarl EX. So it has the Punk Up ability. When you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may search your deck for up to 5 basic Dark Energy cards and attach them to your Marnie's Pokemon any way you like. Has a Shadow Bullet attack for 2 dark energies. 180 tackles, does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So Sniper attack. Another instance where Dark is going to be really good. It is on the stage 2, so we'll see how that plays off, but so far this card is reading okay.
Yeah, it's going to set your board up. 180 and 30 is a really solid attack. It's only 2 energy. It's a stage 2, and stage 2s really aren't hard to get out. Even with a rare candy, the ability procs with a rare candy because you're still evolving from your hand. So it is something that will work with just minimum support.
So before we talk about another trainer, I just want to talk about Ange Reshiram, since that's the other end card that we know. So it's a basic dragon Pokemon, 130 HP, has 2 attacks, powerful rage 20 times. This attack does 20 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So we just have to find a way to really power up get damage on this Pokemon, or really pair it with the Zoroark.
You're copying that attack with Zoroark if Zoroark doesn't get one shot, for sure.
Yeah. So there's that, and then the other attack is Virtuous Flame, 170 damage. If anything, you can use it for the 170 damage and Zoroark, and that's an easy 170 is a pretty decent number, and I'm sure you can find ways to buff that damage as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about the last trainer Pokemon archetype that was introduced. And I think this archetype will be up there with the conversation with Iono as the most complete archetype that we have as of right now.
Yeah, when this was announced, I believe last week, everyone went crazy. It's all the Pokemon associated with this trainer. One, people are like, this trainer doesn't deserve these Pokemon. But when you read what this archetype does, oh my gosh.
Hop is probably the most annoying rival in all of the Pokemon video games. So I understand the hate.
So, as we mentioned, Hop is the last trainer that we're going to be talking about, and his slew of Pokemon is actually pretty nuts.
Yeah, so let's talk about the first one, and then we'll talk about the other ones because they'll make sense once we connect them all together.
Yeah.
So the first one is Hop's Zacian EX. So it's a basic 230 HP Steel-type Pokemon that has 2 attacks. The first one for a single colorless is Close Cleave. It does 30 and then does 30 to the bench. The second attack is for triple metal color, so 4 total energy. Brave Slash is 240, and you can't use Brave Slash next turn. On the surface, it doesn't sound good.
It sounds okay.
It sounds okay.
Like,
but
I'm sure you can pair this with, like, Metal Maker to make it work, or even Archaludon. But I don't know.
Absolutely.
That first attack seems pretty mid, though. Like, you gotta convince me on this. Please
so the first attack... Well, the first attack reminds me a lot of an old archetype called Buzzwole GX. Because Buzzwole GX had almost the same exact cards. I'm going to read Buzzwole GX to you. And you tell me where the similarities lie, okay?
Okay.
So Buzzwole GX was back in the day. It's 190 HP metal or fighting type Pokemon. It had the attack Jet Punch for single fighting that did 30 and then 30 to the bench.
That's like identical, other than the only difference is the typing.
Exactly. And then it had 2 other attacks because it was a GX. It was an Ultra Beast GX, so Ultra Beast had a little extra. But let's just talk about the second attack, which is Knuckle Impact. It was triple fighting for 160. This Pokemon can attack during the next turn. So this one had a no attack cost period kind of attack.
Okay. But so Buzzwole was a good card back then, right?
Yeah, so Buzzwole was good because it had a couple of different pieces with it. One, it was paired with a Pokemon Lycanroc GX that had Bloodthirsty Ice. When you evolve it, you basically had an evolution boss's orders.
Okay.
So that had some control piece, and Lycanroc was the same typing, so it worked. It also existed in a format with strong energy, so that when you attach strong energy to Buzzwole, the attacks did 20 more, and you could stack that, so you can attach 2 to 3 strong energies to make that 30 do more damage.
Okay, so there was a whole package around that archetype. So
yeah, and then Choice Band was a thing, so another 30 damage. So you kind of see where I'm saying you could build it up.
Okay, I can see that, and it worked back then, but what about this archetype? Like, can we build this one up too?
Absolutely, we can. So the next end Pokemon I want to talk about is the next step to puzzle, right? So End Snorlax. End Snorlax is a basic 150 colorless Pokemon. It has the ability Big Belly. Your attacks of your Hops Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active. The effect of Big Belly does not stack. So that's the biggest difference. So this Big Belly cannot stack like Strong Energy did. But it's still turning that 30 into 60.
Okay, yeah, that's doing better. And it's a basic Pokemon, so you can play down with Nest Ball, Ultra Ball. There's easy ways to find the Snorlax.
Absolutely. And then the next card we need to talk about is End's Wooloo and End's Double. So End's Wooloo is just a basic 70 HP colors Pokemon, no big deal. But Hop's Double is that piece that kind of will tie part of it together even more. So Hop's Double has the ability Challenge Horn. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot.
So we're playing Buzzrock, aren't we?
We absolutely are. We absolutely are. It's one of those situations where Pokemon don't get reprinted, they get reskinned.
Yeah, and obviously those who are listening, I knew all this was happening. We've talked about this. This has been in the community's conversation for the last couple weeks now. But this is insane. Like, it has the power-ups to make this strong. And I wasn't kidding. Like, you can't pair this with our Chaladon to get that Zacian second attack going so easily. And our Chaladon's not going to be... It's going to take a while for that to get hit, so it's not really that big of a two-prize liability. This deck is going to be strong. I can see this making the graphic in Atlanta, because this set will be legal for Atlanta from what I've heard. So I'm excited. As someone that loves the metal archetype, I want to try this out as well. And I believe there's actually one more piece, or really there's two more pieces that we can talk about with that.
There's
deck.
actually another one that I want to point the connection between the two decks even more. So there's a Hops Cramorant. So Hops Cramorant is a basic 110 HP Pokemon. Has attack Fickle Spit, 120 damage. If your opponent doesn't have exactly 3 or 4 prizes, this attack does nothing. Back in the day, the Buzzwole archetype had a card called Beast Ring. You can only play this card if you only had exactly 3 or 4 prizes. So another, almost like for like, it just switched out kind of its versatility, but another like for like right there. So I saw that connection. I started chuckling a little bit. It is just utilizing more and more of the Buzz Rock comparisons. The other piece to this puzzle is Hop's Choice Band. So Choice Band did get its actual reprint. It just has a trainer attachment. When the Hop Pokemon, this card is attached to attacks, the attack costs 1 colorless less and does 30 damage.
So the Archaladon actually makes it a lot better too.
And you can do the first attack for free.
Yeah, that's insane. And then the last piece is a Stadium Postwick. The attacks of Hop's Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon.
Yes.
So
there's the archetype. Crack a whole bunch of packs, build this deck, and go to a tournament.
Yeah. Easily.
So, very interesting. It's just one of those situations where I think for players that have played it a long time, you get to see things come back. Good decks get reprinted. Good cards get reprinted. They get reskinned, and they just get put into a metagame and evolves over time for sure.
Yeah, and this is just tip of the iceberg. I'm sure they're going to introduce more trainers. Obviously, with Lily and Marnie, we don't really have a lot, and even with N, we don't have a lot. So we'll in the next coming months, we'll see more cards introduced. We'll talk about them as they are. I know there's other item cards here, but we can save that for another day. But yeah, just a quick introduction to Journey Together. I'm excited for this, for our friends that are going to go to Atlanta Regional. This is the set to really watch out for. Start playtesting as soon as you can. So yeah, that's set. We'll see what else gets introduced with it. But before we go to the rogue deck of the week, I just want to have a question for you, Devin.
Sure.
So this weekend, we're actually going to a tournament together.
Yes, you've convinced me to go to a League Cup.
Yes, and this is your first League Cup in how long?
4 years.
So how are you feeling?
I mean, I've been to tournaments. I used to do the competitive grind. I'm used to being on the road every weekend. I did Team Challenge during COVID. So it's not like I haven't played Pokemon. I haven't touched TCG cards. I just don't have time to go to cups much anymore. And when you've been asking me for a year and a half now, just for the record, for those who don't know, he asks me almost every single quarter, hey, can you come over? Hey, can you come over? Hey, can you come over? And I say no because I wasn't really comfortable with the meta because I don't collect the cards anymore. If you see on the Rogue Deck of the Week episodes, I'm using Dean's live account. I don't have my own account. I love the game. I've been invested in the game for years. I just don't have any physical or digital cards.
However, I do. I have a lot of them. I made 7 decks in the last week.
So he had asked me to go. I ran it through my wife to see if we had any plans. We don't. So I'm going to go over to Tampa. I am going to go to a cup for the first time. I'm not going to say the deck yet. Definitely, we're going to talk about that next week when it comes to a post-tournament report. But I'm excited. I have to go through and find a play mat, find a bag, find my dice. Luckily enough, you're giving me the deck and the sleeve, so I don't have to worry about that. But it's going to be interesting. I know some of your friends know who I am. I've met a couple of your friends, so at least I'm going to an area where I will be able to have fun with the people who do normally attend, because it's not like I'm unknown with your friend group. They definitely know who I am. But it's going to be very interesting. The people who will not know me will be like, who is this guy? And it's going to be one of those situations where I will play to win. I am a fairly competitive person. You know me. If I want to be competitive, I will be competitive. If I want to be laid back, I will be laid back, but I don't have an in-between.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to mention that, like, this is, like, I know you went to Orlando a couple years ago and you did a couple regionals with me, but this is, like, one of your first local tournaments since moving down to Florida as well. So, we'll have a tournament report next week, and it's kind of like when me and John were talking about our tournaments. Now, Devin and I will talk, and it's just not going to be my experience. So, I'm excited. We're going back to For Honor and Glory. I need to defend my title, which I'm expecting to lose. Like, I know who I am as a player. I know the people in our area. So it will just be fun, and I'm just excited to just go to another tournament and just see how it goes. So, enough of that. Let's talk about everyone's favorite segment. They listened to us for an hour, patiently waiting. So now let's talk about the Rogue Deck of the Week. So this was interesting trying to find one for this week, as there hasn't been a lot of big tournaments lately. But we finally found something that we both actually liked.
Yeah, and I think the archetype that we picked was an archetype a lot of people had a lot of hype on. And I think recently has gained a lot of momentum. But the list we went with this week, we kind of just took a pivot away from the nature of that new list and kind of kept it more unilateral, more linear.
So we are doing Ceruledge, but I'm looking at the list. It seems off to me.
Yeah, so if you would go on the limit list or watch some of the results, you will see Ceruledge's name a couple of times. It has done well online, but it's done well with a different partner. Those lists use Palkia V-Star as its backup attacker. And with this list, we decided to go with a different V-Star. We went with Simisear V-Star instead.
Yes,
and
this is a card, by the way.
It is a card. It's probably not even $1. And it's a card that no one wanted, but this card makes sense in this archetype. And I had a lot of fun playing with
it. I tried it out. I did not have the luck that you did, but it was fun. I'm actually looking up Simisear V-Star right now. It is a 50-cent card for a V-Star.
Yeah, so you can buy this as a bulk V, and you'd be fine. So for those who don't know, let's kind of go into the actual deck, right? So Ceruledge EX is a Stage 1 Terra fighting Pokemon with 270 HP that has 2 attacks. The first one is Abysmal Flames. It's 30 and then plus an additional 20 for every energy card in your discard pile. It has a second attack, Raging Amethyst for 280 for fighting Psychic, Fire Psychic Steel. Discard energy from his Pokemon. We'll never use that second attack. That second attack hasn't been used and won't really be used unless someone else finds a different way to doing it. And then Simisear V-Star is a stage. It's a V-Star stage. So stage 1, fire 260 HP Pokemon with the first attack of Fireball Forever, 40 plus, and then you may discard 5 cards on top of your deck. This attack does 40 more for each card you discarded this way. And then it's V-Star attack, so you can only do this once per game. For a single fire is Ember Star, and it's 30 times, and the multiplier is 30 damage for each energy card in your discard pile. So you can only ever use the V-Star power attack once, but it makes so much sense with Ceruledge, honestly. And unless your opponent knows what Simisear V or V-Star does, you can put Simisear V on the bench, and your opponent will have no idea what you're doing.
No, yeah, when I tested this, people just ignored it and went after the Ceruledge, and you pop the V-Star, and they're like, "Oh, I need to take this out," and then they ignore your Ceruledge, which is easily all set up, and they go after this, and it's a good it's a good way to trade the prizes back and forth. We'd still play water energy in this because we do play a Crispin, so you still have that option of Moonlight Shuriken with the Radiant Greninja if you have to. We play a dark energy with the Munkidori to help transfer energy to get the math right as well. This just has a lot of pieces that just work well with each other, and I am just surprised that the Western player base have not found a way to make this work, because this is all over the place in Japan.
And it's becoming more and more popular recently. I was looking before I was really digging deep into this deck. Ceruledge is gaining more and more popularity in the online tournaments, but it's Ceruledge, Palkia, V-Star right now. And I think it took time for people to optimize it, but I think it's close to optimization. And we're going to see it more and more, especially with rotation, because really, Ceruledge can exist without those backup attackers. With those V-Star Pokemon rotating out, you just find another partner with it. Or you just go pure Ceruledge.
That's true, yeah.
So, it was fun. I know you and I had 2 very different experiences with playtesting this deck before we recorded today.
Oh, yeah.
I did a couple matches, and you will see both those matches on the showcase video that will be dropping on the Friday after. And it was honestly, the deck ran super smooth for me. If I had more time, I probably would play this deck more in real life at local tournaments. I don't know if I would bring it to a regional just yet in terms of confidence level with the deck, but I definitely would bring this to a Challenger Cup.
Yeah, I know I pulled one of the Ceruledge's EX. I was actually going to build this deck, but when it first came out, that card was like almost $8 a pop. I'm not sure what it is now. I'm assuming it probably went down in price as it hasn't really seen the success that we were all anticipating. But this is a very straightforward. It is linear, so I know a lot of players don't like decks being linear. But if you need something where you have one strategy and you want to just focus on that strategy, this is a really good deck to pick up to do that.
So Ceruledge EX right now is a $4 card. So it's super affordable. And exactly what you said. I've heard a lot of top players kind of be like, "Oh, this is a linear strategy. It isn't complicated." It doesn't have to be. There's a lot of decks that are very linear. Those big beat stick decks are almost always very linear. And all because it doesn't have a complicated strategy does not make it a bad card.
No, all it does is it makes your gameplay predictable, but as you and me talked about, as long as you can get ahead of the prize race, who cares if what you're doing is predictable? You're already in the lead. You're already in a good position to win the match, and that's all that matters.
Exactly.
So that's this week's Road Deck of the Week. As we mentioned, it will be posted the Friday, the day after this episode drops on YouTube. So if y'all don't know, we do have a YouTube page that has all the episodes and all the showcases. So go ahead, subscribe, listen to it, give us your feedback on what do you think about the decks. As always, reach out to us if you have any decks of your own. Kind of pulling behind the curtain. We had a hard time trying to pick a deck this week, so if you have suggestions, we're open. We want to try whatever decks, whether wacky, fun, complicated, whatever they are. We want to try it out, and everyone thinks differently, and we value y'all's opinion, and you can help us grow, like help us think of fun ideas that we probably won't think of.
Absolutely. And we definitely want to showcase when we pick a deck, we want to play it, we want to be able to talk about our experiences, but I also want to show it off. And this, I think, was a really good example of that the last couple weeks. And we're not even talking just Pokemon Trading Card Live. If you have a Pocket deck, I would love. Honestly, I love playing Pocket. So if you give me an excuse to do another Pocket video, I'm not going to say no. So definitely throw those out there as well. It's part of the game. It's part of the growth. It's just another way to get your hands onto cards.
Yeah, and then we're also open to GLC and Expanded. I know I go to a league that does that, plays those decks as well. I can always take those ideas and play them IRL and share my experience with that. We will give credit to any creators. FYI, kind of like what we did with my buddy Aaron. He created that nice stall wall deck, and he gave us full permission to talk about it. So yeah, just let us know. Hit us up. With all that being said, is there any final thoughts for this week's episode, Devin?
No, I'm just honestly, I'm excited for the cup that's coming up this weekend. I'm excited next week to talk about our experiences and what we saw, and kind of just being able to enjoy playing cards together.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna get our deck sleeved up tonight, and yeah, I just love playing Pokemon in real life. Last week I went to my league and did decide my fate. I built 6 decks, had them roll the die, and they decided what deck I was gonna play. I had no say in it, so that was fun. And yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting our content. Until then, we'll see y'all next week, and have fun playing those sneaky decks.